Hi folks, this is Miguel from the Embargo Man channel. So we're talking about Liancourt rocks and other issues 2026, right? So why did I have to talk about Liancourt rocks and other issues 2026? All right, so put it this way. Put it this way, out of all the things, it is what happened. It has happened before in these sporting events that are very big, like most likely like the Olympics and the World Cup, right? So Liancourt rocks and other issues going to be focused on what would happen within the World Cup 2026 within Japan and South Korea, because I mean this have happened. And we talking about and we talking about with this thing of insulting the Dutch. I mean, this is one thing to talking about insulting the Dutch, but this is when we're going to the 2022 World Cup against against the Netherlands and Argentina, right? So I mean, I see it. There was a brawl. I mean, they lost. I mean, the Netherlands lost to Argentina, and they always go in the final and lose. But there's one thing that I think bothers me. The star of Argentina, Lionel Messi, has criticized. He not just looking for fights with the Dutch team in football, soccer. They not looking to, but also thinking he's all that, but trying to insult the coach, and he said this to one of the Dutch players: "Where are you looking, you idiot? Go away, you idiot!" Boom, right there. This is one part of insults and scrutiny, and all of that, just because, okay, 1-1, but not it's not but it's not the time to just go on fights, and go and beat up. I mean, making it this look more like, instead of making it look like a World Cup, it looked more like WrestleMania, right? That's out of the way. But then 2026 along, but we have talking about this. I'm going to talk two things around there. I'm going to talk about also in 2012 in the Olympics. The Olympics in 2012, Young Woo Park winning a third medal in football slash soccer against Japan over a territorial dispute out of the Liancourt rocks back in 2012. And in London, England, put in that way, is saying that the player park hold a banner in Korean that says Do is Korean territory. Do belongs to Korea. And this is where this Liancourt rocks issue has come into play in sporting events. Just the Olympics is one event that has happened. One event that has happened. And all have leads up to is about one thing in common. I am going to say I support freedom. I support people who are crying for freedom, freedom fighters. Doesn't matter where they from. But the interesting about Japan and South Korea battling out and just and just causing so many problems. The thing is about, having this type of thing, but we're not talking about another issue that has been going on. And this is not just a Japan problem, it's a global problem. And it's called, sex slavery, Korean sex slaves back in World War II. Most likely about a fancy name to call the prostitutes is comfort women. Comfort women is just another fancy name to call hookers, all right? Prostitutes. So back to the insulting the Dutch people too, but this is 2026 insulting Dutch people, right? So as to say of many of these Asian teams in the World Cup, they might have some foreign-born players or players that have their mother born in a foreign country. And regarding to all this stuff, all the statistics, all of everything like that about something with World War II issues regarding prostitution. This is not just Japan, but Germany's fault also. I mean, it is with military brothels and hookers for, like, let's say GIs being pimps, right? I mean, being pimps, treated them like trash, and then covered things up, and then blaming one another. I mean, there's only one country that does this kind of garbage. I mean, two countries in Asia, sadly, that does this kind of garbage, because sometimes in a man's world, men will love to lie and then blame it and then look themselves, oh, we didn't do it. We didn't do it. Look, you did. You raped the women. You did it. You mistreat them. Fine. Very well said. I'm gonna be well said. It's both of you fault, all right? So doesn't matter if it's from Japan or Korea. I mean, exactly what it is. It is till this day. It is done till this day, even within the United States. About I'm gonna saying to be believing breaking that can of worms. Open up the can of worms. Because thank you, Korea, to open up the can of worms to stand up for yourselves. Even though you ain't perfect. You guys ain't perfect. Wonder why? You made your mistakes. Your ancestors raped your own women, and all of suddenly, this is the worst case scenario of annexation and all that stuff. Okay, there are still annexed countries, all right? So to say all this thing about regarding to the Chinese and Korean women being mistreated by the Japanese military, that even Korea used to be like Japan's Puerto Rico in that sort of way. I have already know the case of both of full of lies, can of worms, men being dirty-minded. Foolish men. Mistreating women, covering yourself out, blaming each other like little children. Come on. Grow a pair already, grow a pair of balls and admit that we all screw up. Grumpy old men. Your grandparents or whatever, what they have done, right? It is what would be like this. This is the reason why they have this type of protest. And this is the reason why not just Japan issue, but there's other issues going on. We still do it. All women protesting against the Japanese government. what if the Puerto Rico were to be an independent country? There will be the same thing what the Korean women did to protest against the Japanese government. Puerto Rican women will do the same thing against the government of the United States of America. And that's just a way it goes. It is, but putting in of all of that stuff, yes, governments cover things up, they lie and blame it on others. Japan says, oh yeah, it's you all prostitutes. This is all right. They're all prostitutes, just with another fancy name to call prostitutes comfort women, and that's what they are. Pimps treat these women like crap, and the same thing what would happen if Puerto Rico be an independent country. They're going to protest against the American government because American GIs rape women, rape Puerto Rican women, and where it goes all in the beginning is that each one blaming each other. A country be independent from a country that wants to be in control, they gonna go and blame each other. Oh yeah, they just toss in the fire and they don't know that their own people are in the military for the country. They were controlled, they were like part of the Commonwealth. To say, oh yeah, they rape their own women, they're part of the Commonwealth, and they fight for the military of the Commonwealth of the nation that is a Commonwealth from. That's it. Korea was a Commonwealth of Japan. That's the annexation right there. But then this is where I might say that in the Korea side, when they comes to issues like that, is gonna go either to another country. This is not just happening in Japan, it happens in the Netherlands. But as governments do, they said, okay, we checked all the women to make sure they're not sick, to make sure they don't have any STDs and whatever. That's BS. Why? Because pimps treat women like trash. They treat them like they were a piece of meat. And what else would be is this. All right? I could agree with this. I could agree with sex workers protesting and getting arrested and to say, okay, I'll see you as a hooker or whatever it is. That's it. That's what they did in 2004. And what would these women who were sex workers in Korea do? They migrate to other countries or countries where it's legally, not just to Las Vegas, but also to the Netherlands and Amsterdam, where it's legal. Whereas that crap is legal. Meeting assholes, but yes, of course. But one thing for sure, of a person of mixed heritage playing for Korea, he'll be of mixed heritage. He's gonna insult his father, and he's gonna insult the country of his birthplace, playing for the country of his mother. Why? Because, I mean, let me tell you what, if Messi is from Argentina, would be making him look like Prince Charming, calling Dutch players an idiot, a half Korean and half Dutch playing for Korea, Dutch born, Dutch father, Korean mother, will say that his father's an asshole. Yes, of course he's an asshole. I mean, you cannot insult, but you just insult him and he will say, oh, look, you raped my mother. All right. Say he said that he raped his mother. He said that he might be born on his father's shithole, on his dad's shithole. That means calling the Netherlands a shithole. Why? Because his dad raped his mother. Will be a product of rape, playing football slash soccer, and the 2026 tournament. It would be about playing against the Netherlands. What he does is give out the middle finger to the crowd of everybody, giving the freaking middle finger. This says, "This is for you, Dad. This is for you, Dad." Pulling out the middle finger. Pulling out the middle finger to point it at his father because his father raped his mother. And that's opened up the can of worms to say not everything that glitters is gold. I mean, you think you see women, showing up on the window, yeah, like a store, like a pet or something like that, like you seeing a pet. Yeah, but you seem to pet just to have sex, and they seem to look happy. They seem to look happy, but inside, within themselves, they are so desperate. They're living a living hell, and those pimps treat them like garbage. In other words, said in vulgar language, they treat women like shit. Why? It is like that. It is like that, making up bullshit, saying, "Oh, we take them good care of them and treat them like it is," and that's the reason why they get raped. They get, it's the same thing as that happening. Same thing as that's happened when Japan have these brothels in China and rape all these Chinese and Korean women and other women from Asia. And them Dutch pimps do the same thing with all the women, including Asian women, including Korean women. Right? So it is what it is. Even in Vegas they do it. Even probably in US military bases in Puerto Rico, when they do it, the same kind of garbage, mistreating Puerto Rican women, and yes, being raped by American soldiers. Whoa, same thing. Governments just cover things up to say nothing. I have done nothing. I have do nothing. But guess what? Guess what? It is that I might just stank that's mixed, half Dutch, half Korean, soccer slash football player who plays for the national team of South Korea, to expose this truth, to expose that this kind of BS is still going on today in Amsterdam. Pimps mistreating women, cover things up to say this is a lie, to say that everything's all right, and lie about it, make women who are the victims of rape keeping their mouth shut. They always do that. Foolish men always do that. Keep their mouth shut and don't and never to say anything because I think of watching YouTube. But besides watching YouTube, you gotta thank this Korean man in 2026 playing for a Dutch-born South Korean soccer player slash football, playing for South Korea's national team in 2026, held in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Why? And one thing he might just say, I ain't not gonna have no respect for somebody who disrespects his father. No. Why? Somebody that might even hold a sign, a banner. One thing he might be true. He will say, he'll hold a banner that says, "Proud to be a son of a bitch." Yes, his mother's a bitch. Bitch is another word to call whore or prostitute. Another name for prostitute is bitch. So he will hail a banner, proud to be a son of a bitch, and he will say that his father's a piece of shit on on TV in the world stage. Everybody's watching it. He might say, hold the banner, "Hey dad, fuck you," right in front of there. "Hey dad, fuck you," and call the Netherlands a shithole. That's it. That's what it is. And I don't like the kind of people like that. It is a disgrace. Doesn't matter if your father's an asshole. Respect your father, even though he's an asshole. All right? Or not an asshole. You know, honor thy mother, thy father, even a father, even if your father's an asshole. Yeah, don't worry. He just make mistakes because why? Because you call him and not even insulting a country, even though this is like an insult that I don't like, from the former president of the United States, have saying that certain countries are shitholes. This person playing for South Korea in 2026, born in the Netherlands, Dutch father, Korean mother, his mother is a prostitute. He will say, proud to be a son of a bitch. He calls his father's birthplace and the country he's going against a shithole. He says he might be born in his father's shithole, but he's playing for South Korea. That's kind of something that I don't like. And what you want to do, you want to follow the K wave. Don't follow the toxic wave of somebody saying, "Oh yeah, born in his father's shithole," just because his father raped his mother. On the job, the boss, the pimp. Yeah, I mean, that is not right. Don't follow this stupid trend of disrespecting the parents, even if they're playing in a global sporting event like the World Cup or the Olympics. That doesn't go right with me. Now, Liancourt rock situation. Now I'm talking to somebody where it is. I mean, I love Team Japan. Very respectful. Their fans clean up the stadiums after the game finished, and everybody is copying them. Right. That's true. I mean, Japan ain't a perfect country either. Not even Korea. So everybody has their problems and everything like that. But one thing about this thing is about probably one of Japan's best players from 2026 will be of mixed heritage. And what would be? It would be a country in South America, where my parents are from, selling the jersey of an asshole who mistreats his father, calling his father an asshole, calling the birthplace of his country who's going against a shithole. That's the kind of person you want to talk about, or you prefer somebody that is crying for freedom, right? And this is where it is. It doesn't matter if it's a man getting ran over by a tank. Do you remember? Do you know that time in history that happened in China? Now what it is, do you remember the Contras? The Contras, yeah. Ronald Reagan fighting for freedom against against an SOB that we know that, I mean, talking about that, leaning towards one thing in common, the Liancourt rocks. The Liancourt rocks, that Japan call it Takeshima, South Korea call it Dokdo. It has been an issue since the 1950s or after World War II, and then the San Francisco Treaty, whatever it is, in the Japanese point of view, it said that these islets, these little rocks within the Sea of Japan, belongs to Japan, and they say, oh, Korea went and occupied them illegally. Well, in the Korean point of view, they said it always belonged to Korea and whatever it is, and then historically, geographically, and with an international law and whatnot, it's just one thing in common that I would say what is leaning. I have been suddenly when I knew about these Liancourt rocks, I was just cheering for Japan in this kind of issue. Why? Because I noticed about it that these rocks within the Sea of Japan, right? So the claim of South Korea administration, it just leads to taking the Liancourt rocks issue into the World Cup. Why? Because I knew that this person crying for freedom will also do this Dokdo awareness in Colombia. Why Dokdo awareness in Colombia? That's what the Koreans called these Liancourt rocks. And I don't mind Liancourt rocks or people who are going in favor of Korea over the Liancourt rocks. Why? Because that's their expression, and then this is where to settle in probably have been divided, a country divided in North and South. Who knows what they're going to be. Maybe it would be this issue. Maybe one of these days King Charles III will be involved with the unification of both Koreas, and let the people in Argentina, or actually the country of Argentina, be with solidarity with Japan because of another issue with what is called the Falklands. And talking about the Falklands, leave the Falklands aside, and what we're talking about is just one person of mixed heritage playing for Japan. Father from Japan, born in Japan, and probably mother of Nicaraguan or Nicaraguan birth, born in Nicaragua, right? So mother from Nicaragua, father from Japan, and all we're gonna say, I hope we get rid of Daniel Ortega. He said he wished his mother's country to be free. He was crying for freedom for Nicaragua. He also said about he wished that Daniel Ortega is gone, could be in jail, lifetime sentence. It doesn't matter if he's gonna be in death penalty or whatever it is. But then after that, there's another issue tossing into the burner. This is freaking hot. About after saying Takeshima belonging to Japan and plus free Nicaragua, he will toss out about San Andres Islands, where folks in Colombia would say, or where, even if it's Japan versus Colombia, whatever it is in the 2026, would just lean on to, you know what? What is this guy? He's crazy. What the heck? You know what? You know what? Let me hear. Let me hear it. Oh, let's side with Korea. Boom. They're gonna go and support Korea just because of San Andres. Just because of San Andres, just because a mixed Japanese person crying for freedom, expression Takashima belonging to Japan, the way he expressed about what he felt about the Liancourt rocks, tossing another island that made the audience in Colombia being in favor of South Korea and being in favor, and I bet some of them who are in the Takashima bandwagon are going, once you see this guy saying crying for freedom for one country in Central America, and Takashima, the Takashima people in Colombia will jump on the Dokdo bandwagon. Why Dokdo bandwagon? Because of all this. Because of all these things about Takashima and Dokdo and San Andres in the way, and Ortega out means boom, here we go. Korea, here we go. The Korean uniforms, I mean the national football team / soccer team of South Korea will be the second best-selling jersey from an Asian country being sold in Colombia, all because of one mixed player crying for freedom for one country, crying that one Ortega out, crying that even though he's saying Takashima is gonna toss out another island called San Andres. Why? It is plain and simple. The Korean wave, in other words, in the Japanese point of view, that are supporting of Takashima, oh look, the Korean wave is going to Colombia in a toxic way, brainwashing these people I am part of them. I am going to be out of the influence, brainwashing them to be in favor of Korea, in favor of Dokdo instead of Takashima. And that's just the reason why I'm just saying that if that happens, I'd rather support the player from Japan of mixed heritage crying for a Central American country to be free instead of supporting an asshole insulting his Dutch father, insulting the Netherlands, and just saying just because his mom got raped, put it in no questions asked. In every part of the world where there is legal, when there is prostitution, and even in Vegas and whorehouses, pimps will always be assholes. Pimps will always say and will always lie and says, oh yeah, let's check the women in there. Boom. But not supporting of somebody that insults their parents. I'm not gonna support. I'd rather support somebody that yell out and cries for freedom than somebody insulting his father just because he raped his mother, calling a father a piece of shit, and the father or probably wishing death threats. Yes, wishing death threats to thy father. No, I'm not gonna support that kind of garbage. But I support somebody that is cry for freedom. I don't care where they from. I don't care if it's from Japan. I don't care if it's in if it's in Asia, a man in China standing up, or the protests in Hong Kong, all if they wanted to show their support for freedom, I don't mind that. I mean, one thing it is, I don't give a damn about about people in Colombia favoring South Korea over the Liancourt rocks issue, favoring that these two little rocks belong to Korea just because this guy, who is of mixed heritage from Japan, half Nicaragua, to say, oh look, is Takashima, San Andres, one day will be returned to his mother's country, and that's it. People in Colombia just go ahead and jump on the dope bandwagon right away. Yes, just because of San Andres, jump on the dope bandwagon. That's it. That's the only thing. And maybe one of these entertaining flash mobs that I have seen. I have seen these flash mobs of Dokdo is Korea land, that maybe in 2026, if this happens of a half Japanese, half Nicaraguan football / soccer player who plays for Japan and crying for a country where in Central America that says, I wish they get see, he's saying wish he'd get rid of Daniel Ortega and thus his mother's country be free, and then adding to the line San Andres. That means people in Colombia will say, oh, forget Japan. Let's support South Korea. This is the territory. Look at what this man is. Look what these do. Well, I don't give a damn about that. And if I have the man's uniform, I might wear the samurai blue. Well, everybody in the streets of Bogota or the streets of Medellin or any Colombian town trying to wear, besides the Colombian national football soccer team jersey, other ones, the only Asian country of between Japan and South Korea over that, wearing the South Korean jersey, code red. They're wearing red. I'm wearing blue. This is, oh look, being treated like I was like freaking Benedict Arnold. You know, Benedict Arnold just betrayed the United States in a war because he decided to fight for Britain. Well, and putting in teams, I decided to freaking wear a blue Team Japan, a guy that screams for freedom for a country in Central America, saying that, expressing himself about Takashima belonging to Japan, while adding the San Andres Island on the mix to have people in Colombia support for Korea. I don't mind if they support Korea and have wearing the South Korean uniform because of having Nicaraguan Japanese soccer / football player crying for Nicaragua to be free, and crying and expressing himself of Takashima belonging to Japan, adding San Andres. I don't mind that kind of garbage because I support a person that cries for freedom than a person from, even though they're gonna sell the asshole that insults his father's jersey more in Colombia than the freedom fighter crying for freedom. Why? Because what it is to be right, Koreans always open up the can of worms during the prostitution, anything most likely involving Koreans and other countries, not just Japan, but having so many, because opening up a can of worms of this dark side of the dark side of the Amsterdam red light district, the dark side of all of that. And yes, I support, women need to be respected and not to be treated like trash. Doesn't matter if it's Japan or the Netherlands or the United States of America or wherever. But I also support people were who were to cry for freedom, crying for freedom for a country. I mean, I don't support people that mistreat their parents or says, "Oh, look, I'm not gonna support my dad. I wish my dad is dead," or whatever it is. Yeah, or it's like a book says, "Glad that my mom is dead." All right, so this is kind of an insult, a mystery. Why don't I don't like the people that disrespect their parents, even if they're playing, if they're a soccer player, even if they're playing for the South Korea national football slash soccer team. All I care is for people who cry for freedom. Doesn't matter the country it is, even if they mind expressing themselves of the Liancourt rocks belonging to Japan, leaning a Colombian audience, supporting Korea's cause of the Liancourt rocks because he's mentioning San Andres. That's the person I support. I support a player because haters are gonna hate. And for Japan, the Japanese people, if you want to notice about that, you want to support the cause of what you express about Takashima, right? Takashima belonging to Japan. It is not too late before the unification of Korea happens. That would actually leans towards Argentina being with solidarity with Japan, as I would say Argentina's problem is the Falklands. And actually, I'm all for it. I might love to go to the country today. I would love to support Japan. I also support Colombia. But all of the causes that this thing is that once somebody is speaking out for freedom, once a Japanese player of mixed heritage is speaking out for freedom for one country in Central America, expressing Takashima as Japanese territory, what I don't mind that he expressed about an island that belongs to Colombia, that country he's crying for freedom. Let the people in Colombia leaning to support Dokdo, to saying Dokdo belongs to Korea. Well, crying for freedom for a country in Central America, expressing Takashima belonging to Japan, leaning the people in Colombia towards in favor of South Korea and Dokdo. That's the thing that I don't mind. This stupid territorial issues got to be settled in. If you feel like Takashima belongs to Japan, do it. Go ahead, claim it. Do whatever you want. Do all these flash mobs. Do a flash mob in San Andres about those Korea land if you have problems with a half Japanese player crying for freedom for a country in Central America. Go ahead and say that that Dokdo belongs to Korea. In whatever expression, even in the international court in Hague, express that San Andres is Colombia, that I support the cause of Colombia, of San Andres sovereignty. But I will support a player of mixed heritage from Japan leaning people in Colombia being in favor of South Korea over the Liancourt rocks, but not saying that I will support this mixed thing. But all I think, or all I care, the thing that I will support is freedom, freedom, and support of democracy. Why I support democracy? Because each country in the world, doesn't matter if it's a republic, doesn't matter if it's a constitutional monarchy like the United Kingdom or like Japan, but that's what I support. Why? Because we all need to support freedom and democracy. Doesn't matter if it's the tank man in China, doesn't matter if it's in 2026 in the World Cup, a Japanese player of mixed heritage that is half Nicaraguan, crying that Nicaragua is supposed to be free, that you wish that Daniel Ortega is gone, expressing himself that Takashima belongs to Japan and San Andres to his mother's birthplace, leaning people in Colombia on supporting South Korea's cause over the Liancourt rocks to say that Dokdo belongs to Korea. That's thing being the meaningless, but anybody support a cause. I support freedom. I don't care about territorial disputes between South Korea and Japan. I don't play or the Argentina and Britain over the Falklands, or San Andres between Colombia and what it is. But even though I support the cause of the territorial disputes of some countries, to say, but in the Liancourt rock case, I mean, I would say whoever is right is right. If the Japanese are right, they prove that it is Takashima. If the Koreans are right, it's Dokdo. That's it. Please subscribe to the Embargo Man channel. What do you think about these predictions of 2026? And I would think that one thing is better to support somebody that cries for freedom than somebody who insults their father, name calling their father, and even coming out with insults and degrading and insulting a country that were they're born just because of assholes treating women like garbage. And yes, and don't mind about one country in South America leaning towards the support of South Korea over the Liancourt rocks. Goodbye, everybody.